Who do they work for then? Well, it's pretty simple. You know, there's no conspiracy here. It's open who they work for. They work for whoever has more money. Whoever has most money owns the politicians. So if you look at the United States of America, it's really simple. Who is on record saying they want no borders? Mark Zuckerberg, a pig who has no limits in his greed. Yes, I'll use the word pig. I don't apply it to police. I apply it to Mark Zuckerberg. I apply it to pigs who are worth hundreds of billions of dollars, have no nationality, no national identity, don't relate as Americans, even though America gave them their fortune, gave them their education, and they hate the country. They would like to dissolve the borders so they can get cheap H-1B visa workers, mainly from India. That's who it is. Those who want cheap labor. That's all it is. It's only about money. And again, take a look at the highway bill. Why is Paul Ryan's first measure of importance highway construction? Because there's only a few companies in the United States who can do highway construction. They will make trillions of dollars over the next 10 or 15 years. It will be one of the greatest pork barrel measures in the history of the country. So after raping us on Obamacare, do you know what fortunes have been made on Obamacare? You think money was saved? Do you know what fortunes have been made by fake front companies working with politicians? You can't even figure it out, can you? The fake insurance companies, the fake ambulance companies, the fake medical supply companies. Billions upon billions of dollars a year going into the hands of criminals through Obamacare. Now that's not enough for them. They want to sack the Treasury to the extent now that there's nothing left. Nothing. You'll be a pauper in rags, and they could care less. They'd rather leave you a pauper in rags than stop the thievery.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Every one of these candidates say, Obama's weak. He's Putin's kicking sand in his face. When I talk to Putin, he's going to straighten out. Just looking at him, he's going to be. And then it turns out they can't handle a bunch of CNBC moderators. If you can't handle those guys, then I don't think the Chinese and the Russians are going to be too worried about you.
Well, I think he's found his milieu as an entertainer. I think he would have a very big career, and I think Ratzenberg, and Geffen could find a good job for him in a movie. He'd be a fabulous comedian after his destructive years in the White House. He seems to like the applause, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of greasy paint. So should Merkel and other EU gangsters be tried for crimes against their nations in a new People's Nuremberg trial? Wow, what a loaded question that is. Where'd that come from? Should Merkel of Germany and other EU evil union gangsters be tried for crimes against their nations in a new People's Nuremberg trial, says an American talk show host. And he asks the question, should there be a People's Nuremberg trial in which Angela Merkel is tried for crimes against her nation? And while you're at it, how about a People's Nuremberg trial here in the United States of America for the gangsters in the United States government who are sacking the Treasury and invading the nation? How about that? A People's Tribunal. It's legal. You hold it, you set it up, and you hold a People's Tribunal. It could even be done digitally. For God's sakes, I could do it. I could do a video feed on it. We get several judges. We present the evidence. We have defense counsel for those we are accusing of committing crimes against America. It wouldn't be too hard to prove that they're criminals and gangsters, would it? Well, let's start with the obvious. Let's start with a few senators and congressmen from San Francisco whose fortunes went up 100-fold since they became politicians on the national stage. How did they make so much money? How did their families benefit so well? You can't put two and two together? You mean because they don't have an R next to the name, they can't be corrupt? Okay, now let's take the next question. Let's ask the next question. How is it that a man can go around the Constitution on a daily basis, go on to a television show and make jokes about it, and have a group of stoneheads laugh when he talks about violating the Constitution? How? Okay. Should we have a tribunal? Should we have a People's Nuremberg trial here in the United States of America? It wouldn't be Nuremberg, Germany. We'd have to pick a town, let's say Wichita trial. That kind of works. A Wichita trial for crimes against America that is held digitally with a defense counsel, a prosecution, and a jury of 3 people. And I run it digitally. Now let's look at the Veterans Administration. We know it's corrupt. We've heard about it. We've heard about veterans dying in the hallway. We've heard how corrupt the officials are. It's out of the Soviet Union, where they're stealing money by the billions of dollars in ways you could never imagine while vets are dying. They were brought before Congress yesterday in a hearing. Do you know what they did? VA officials plead the fifth and refuse to testify. Now, are you telling me, you liberals, that you thought you'd grow up in a society where government officials would be able to get away with pleading the fifth and refusing to testify? Is that what you had in mind for a free and open society? First, the IRS commissioner wouldn't testify and pled the fifth. Remember that last year? Now Obama's corrupt VA officials are pleading the fifth. This is something only gangsters did in my day and age. Only in the 1950s, only mafia figures pled the Fifth Amendment. I never heard it done otherwise. And people said, oh, God, he's guilty. He's guilty if he's pleading the fifth. Because we had newspapers who would say, mobster pleads the fifth. There was the headline in the Daily News when I was a kid. That's when we had newspapers. That's when we had men. That's when we had a nation. Now we have nothing but corruption in the government media complex. VA gangsters plead fifth. What are they hiding? That would be my headline if I ran the New York Post. But now you understand why I am blacklisted in the New York Post, why I'm blacklisted on Fox News. Because I'm not part of the government media complex. It's that simple. But forget me for the minute. Just put me out of the picture. You don't even have to like me to agree with me. Do you want to live in a country where government officials can plead the Fifth Amendment? Is that the kind of country you thought you'd have when you talked about liberalism? Is this the kind of nation you thought you'd have under this phony Barack Obama, who is the silk smooth con man that you actually thought he was? Well, I think that I will stop at this point on that track and go on to another track. And that is so many other topics that you can't believe. We know about the immigrant crisis in Germany leading to a civil war. We know it could happen in America if they keep it up. But how about this? How about Obama releasing, 6,000 to 8,000 criminals out of the prisons yesterday? Flooding the streets with gangsters and criminals? Just in time for the 2016 election? Guess what he did now? Juvenile delinquents are now called justice-involved youth. I'm not creating this. This came to us from CNS News. They used to be called juvenile delinquents, but not anymore. The new term is justice-involved youth, a non-disparaging government-speak phrase that fits with the Obama administration's recent push to give people with criminal convictions a second chance to become productive citizens. Attorney General, that's a laugh unto itself, Al Sharpton Loretta Lynch. Attorney General Al Sharpton Loretta Lynch said, the Department of Injustice is committed to giving justice-involved youth the tools they need to become productive members of society. This is right out of George Orwell's Brave New World. She's using doublespeak. Justice-involved youth. Okay, here's another one to show you criminals and gangsters. Military blew $43 million on a useless gas station in Afghanistan. Did you hear me? A U.S. gas station that the military built, it should have cost $500,000 and has no value to the average Afghan, cost the United States government $43 million for a natural gas filling station in Afghanistan. A Pentagon task force awarded a $3 million contract to build a gas station in Shaburgan, Afghanistan, but wound up spending $12 million in construction costs and $30 million in overhead to build this gas station. Meanwhile, a similar gas station built in Pakistan cost $500,000. Question: who got the contract to build a station? Where did the $30 million in overhead go? Who owns the contracting company? What is their connection to politicians in the United States of America? Well, get the picture? How about this one for those of you into sexuality? Gay rape in the military underreported by the Pentagon. Rowan Scarborough, Washington Times. Far more military men are being raped by other men than is reported by the Pentagon because of the stigma attached to such sexual assaults, says a new study by the American Psychological Association? What sense did that make? Rates of military sexual trauma among men who served in the military may be as much as 15 times higher than has been previously reported, largely because of barriers associated with stigma, beliefs, and myths about male rape and feelings of helplessness? No, it's not to do with stigma at all. It's to do with gays in the military. What did you expect to happen? What did you think was going to happen? Next topic on the Savage Nation. Climate change. The lie that won't go away. You see, Antarctica is not melting. It's actually gaining ice. Antarctica is gaining ice, unlike the North Pole, where the polar caps are melting, according to a new scientific report. But it doesn't change those propagandists' belief that the planet is getting warmer and the weather is changing. The thickening ice in parts of Antarctica means that the continent is not contributing to rising sea levels, contrary to the conclusion of the corrupt UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change study. Rather, it is taking water out of the ocean at the rate of 1/4 millimeter per year, said a glaciologist at the University of Maryland and the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center who led the study. So more studies are coming out refuting the theory of climate change caused by man, and yet the left, which is totally co-opted, continues to push it so hard. In Government Zero, I wrote an entire chapter about this. If you want the facts, you can read about the Vostok ice core samples. Now, what do you want to believe, science or rhetoric? What will it take for the left to see that climate change is nothing but a scam of the far left? Those are some other topics. 855-400-7282 is the phone number. This is the Savage Nation. Let's go to some of the callers. Tom on WJR, what's your topic, please?
Hey, well, first of all, hell yeah on the Wichita Tribunal. I think we need to do something with the whole brood of them. But my
okay, yeah, I like that. Savage calls for Wichita Tribunal against corrupt politicians.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They're all corrupt. But my point that I want to make was with this highway bill, didn't we have something called a stimulus of, $1.3 trillion or something like that a few years back? That was all for infrastructure, roads, bridges. Where did all that go?
Well, I'll give you the answer. Go to Pacific Heights in San Francisco and take a look at who owns the houses. And go to all the beachfront property in Miami. Go to the beachfront property everywhere on the earth. See who owns them. See if they got contracts. See if they contributed to senators and congressmen, and you'll have your answer.
Money is what they've done. And yes, there should be a tribunal with all of them. They've taken my tax dollars. That's what they've done.
All right, my friend, you're not alone. I'm putting a thought out. It's just like throwing a rock into a pond and seeing the concentric circles emanate from that rock. And I'm asking again, should there be an Omaha tribunal for corrupt politicians in America? Well, of course there should be. It can be done very easily. It can be done digitally. It can be done very, very easily with evidence presented, with a defense counsel present, and with an audience, a small audience where we judge and we name the politicians. We name them and shame them. And we show who got the money, and we show when they got the money, and we show where the money went, and we show that they got away with it because there's no newspapers left in America. You got a free copy of Government Zero, my friend. You can read all about it right there. WABC, Mike, go ahead. You're on the Savage Nation. What's your point?
Hello. Yeah, I just kind of take offense to the portrayal of the highway bill, because we haven't had a highway bill in over 8 years. They keep on pushing it along, and they keep on putting little Band-Aids on it. And as far as the stimulus, we got I'm in the industry, we had very, very small pennies compared to where that went to most of the bankers. We know that. Whereas China was spending about $400 billion on their highway system, and we spent about $40. So we haven't had
slow down. We all know the highways are broken. We all know the infrastructure is crumbling, but we also know that we have the most corrupt government in modern American history. So why would we assume that when they let the contracts out that they won't be no-bid contracts to people who are going to steal the money and do an inferior job? Why should we have any faith in the government spending the money correctly?
You shouldn't have faith in it, but I'm telling you, from somebody that's been in the industry for 40 years, We make the byproduct that comes from it. There are more than just two